The Way Back, new sports drama, let's say, starring Ben Affleck. He plays Jack, a construction worker who is also a raging alcoholic that spends his evenings at the bar or getting drunk at home. He even smuggles vodka in a coffee pot, in a coffee cup, into his work. He lives alone, has nothing to look forward to really. It's very clear that the best days of his life are long gone. And those days were specifically high school when he was a terrific basketball player on his team. And the past comes back for a visit when he gets an offer to coach a high school team at his old school. Initially reluctant, he eventually agrees to do it and slowly whips the previously hopeless players into shape whilst still dealing with his own personal issues. Now, if that description reminds you of Any Given Sunday, you're right, it's a very similar kind of film. A team that is a band of misfits comes together and becomes much better through the help of their coach, who also has his demons. Story all does the world. And The Way Back ticks all the boxes and doesn't really do anything revolutionary with this type of story. It's familiar and predictable, but despite that, it's actually kind of decent. For one, I think Ben Affleck does a great job in what must have been a very personal role for him, as he's been dealing with alcoholism for a while. I think he sells the character really well. His defeated look and posture, his broken voice, his sad eyes. I believed him throughout. I also think that as predictable as the sports side of the story is, it was still engaging, and at moments I found myself really invested in what was going on. There's also one important thing about the movie, and it's that ultimately it doesn't offer easy solutions. It's not like Jack magically changes overnight and flips his life around. It's a process, and one that he fails at for a large part of the film. And I appreciated the fact that that was made very clear, that the tragedy was treated as it should have been. Also, the movie has an atmosphere, a feel to it, which fits the story really well. I can't quite put into words what that was. Probably a mix of cinematography with the properly grainy picture and slightly colder color palette, probably music, probably editing. The end result, though, is that I was transported into the world of the film. It worked for me. I do have a nugget of criticism as well, though, and it has to do with how the film weaves together the sports plot and the personal issues in Jack's life. I thought that, unfortunately, for a large portion of the film, the two seem largely disconnected. There are noticeable moments in the film where the story will just suddenly switch from focusing entirely on one aspect to focus entirely on the other. And they do eventually intersect, but I thought it could have been done earlier and better, because as it is, it kind of feels like you're watching two different movies spliced together. And of course, that thing I already mentioned with lack of new ideas and originality in the script, that's also a flaw for me. Having said that, despite those flaws, I think The Way Back was maybe enjoyable is not the right word, but in a way soothing and slightly uplifting after all was said and done. I certainly think watching it was time well spent.